Okay guys, so we're gonna jump straight into this installation video. Keep in mind, this is the first time I've ever done this. Never even seen the programming before, so I'm gonna show you everything that we run into and really what you're gonna run into when you go to install one of these. At the end of this video, it will be a bike that is ready to ride, so let's get into it. Okay guys, so to start installing this P24F, this nuclear controller, you really need to have your bike to about this point. And of course, there's a bunch of videos online on how to remove a stock controller, how to do all of that. I'm not going to cover all that. We're going to jump straight in here and obviously install this controller. Now, a couple of things that I'll just kind of run over with you guys real quick here. It's a good idea to have your circuit breaker, the little flap here. If you just unbolt it, it'll actually tilt forward. And then, of course, you've got easy access to all of the wires back in here. Makes it nice and easy. Same thing happens down here. I like to pull this shield out of the way. That way, I've got my phase wires. They're nice and easy to get to. Same thing with my power wires, although that is stock zip tied right there to that little panel. But this is essentially where you need to get to. If you can get to this point, it is extremely easy to be able to install these. Now, just to kind of run you through a few things that we are ultimately going to be connecting to this controller. Again, it's going to be those 3 phase wires, the 2 power wires here, those 2 connections that you probably saw in the unboxing video. Then I'll just run through some of these. That, of course, goes to the battery. Same thing here. That goes to the battery BMS. I do also have my key pulled out of here as well, but you may say, hey, there's a couple of connectors there that I don't have. That's actually running up to my cutoff, my emergency tether cutoff, but yours might not have that. That way everything is out of the way, it's nice and easy to route wires, and now we can actually start installing. So now that we've got the phase wires on here, we're going to go ahead and just tighten all of these down. Make sure they are good and tight. You're not going to want these to come off, obviously. Now the next step is, once we get them all tightened down, we're going to put heat shrink over this and tighten them down. Here, just kind of a quick note on doing the heat shrink on these. You probably could do this with a torch or something like that, but a heat gun makes it a whole lot nicer. You don't have to worry about burning it or anything like that. And, you know, like I said before, this is some really nice heat shrink, but it actually is marine grade. You'll see what looks to be like a glue substance that as you start to heat it, and hopefully you guys can see that, as you heat it, it starts to kind of seep out of the ends there. That's because you are literally, you know, gluing the heat shrink onto this so that it stays watertight. You don't have to worry about rust or corrosion or anything like that. But I recommend a heat gun, but your results or whatever you got obviously would work. So now we'll go ahead and use the harness that came with this. This, again, with the Surron kit. Couldn't be any easier. Can't miss these plugs. It's the only 2 that are on the bike. Obviously, these just clip entirely into place. You'll hear them click when they go in all the way. They literally just snug right up just like that. So now we'll go ahead and move up to installing the display. You do want to take the headset cap off here. Very easy to do. You can even use the tool that was supplied with it. Most of these are just hex heads. Yours could be a screw, I don't know. But these usually just come right off just like that. Usually you want to leave that race in place because this is actually what you use to tighten down the headset cup bearings. Okay, now since I didn't loosen this clamp here, we don't have to worry about the bearing at all moving. In fact, we can just leave that in place there. But now what we want to do is come in here and replace that with their piece that they have here. And you may notice this is actually not tall enough. I'm going to have to actually add some additional spacers. All right, so I went and grabbed all of my headset pieces that I have for mountain bike stuff. If you don't have one of these, you can use just a piece of aluminum tubing or even steel tubing for that matter, as long as it fits over here. If you're one of the guys like myself that have changed over to a direct mount stem, you just need it to be able to go down and push against that top crown there. And in this case, what I think I'm going to do is potentially just use one slightly smaller one underneath there. That way the larger one sits above the steerer tube, gives us enough space to be able to still torque that bolt down, put the correct amount of tension on our headset bearings, but yet still have the ability of being able to run this bolt down in there so that we can still tighten all of this stuff into place. And it looks like that is going to work out. So again, take a quick look if you guys can hopefully see that. This is the CAN line. It is a 6-pin. Now on this particular 6-pin, you do have a couple of ridges. There's 2 little ridges here. Those need to line up inside of that. I'm going to try to do this where you guys can actually see this on camera as I connect this plug up here. It's kind of a little tricky to get her in there and still keep room for the camera to be able to see, but that's essentially it. There you go. And that's what she looks like. Once it's plugged in, it should just look just like that. It's fully seated all the way in there. Now we can go ahead and put the cover back on. The only thing you really want to kind of pay attention to is when you put the cover back on, you want to make sure that you're not pinching any wires underneath this cover. It should sit nice and flush, nice and flat. Everything should be really clean in here. In fact, I may even do this. I may even go over even one more just to get some of that heat shrink up inside there so that it makes a nice clean connection. Hopefully you guys are able to see this anyway. There we go. Now that's nice, and it actually holds it. So we'll go ahead and get this guy mounted up. It's just a matter of sliding it in here. They do supply another bolt with this. It's actually in the same baggie as the other hardware. A bit of kind of finagling it because you want to be able to do this from underneath here. Get that guy to go through there, put your Allen wrench in, go ahead and tighten this guy down. Now that we've got the controller mounted here, this is probably a good time to start figuring out where I want to run the wires. And in this case, I'm actually going to go down and around here on the left side where my other wires come around the headset here. That way I can really nicely feed this down to the controller. Once you get all of your wires run the way that you want, you can obviously push this guy back in place. I'll stick an Allen wrench in there, tighten it down, but that's essentially it. And you have a completed installed LCD display. So now we can go ahead and put this panel back in here. And I find if you put those two plugs, the new harness plugs in there, put them up here, make sure that I keep my fuse piece here. Get really everything kind of lined up. You want to just rock this guy back into place here, but you want to be very, very careful for a couple things. For one, you want to make sure you're not going to pinch any wires at all as you scoot this guy forward. If you have to push it or it feels like it's really hard to get in there, something's not right, right? You're pinching a wire, you're doing something. So as long as that guy goes in there just like that, should be able to make sure, oh, I actually went a little far. There we go. Line this guy up. Go ahead and get that plate bolted back into place. Don't forget to tighten up the two bottom ones so that it doesn't rattle on you as well. All right, so last but not least, we're going to want to put this this surround on here. Now we are down to really nothing more than our three-phase wires. We've got our display wire, and then of course the other two connectors that come from the direct connection into the Surron wiring harness. There is a bracket up here at the top. I know you guys can't see this very well. You're either going to want to be behind it or off to the side of it so that you can get down to it. And then of course our two power wires. So this is just a matter of taking all of this, putting it all on here, bringing all of this up. There is actually a nice wire channel here off to the side of this little bracket. They've cut this little section out for the brake line. So that you actually have a place to be able to run those without pinching anything. But effectively, that is what this is going to look like on here, okay? See if I can back you guys out a little bit here. This is essentially what it's going to look like. You are going to have this mounted directly up on here. It's going to go directly against that top part just like that, and everything is going to be nice and tight in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this bolted up into place with of course all of my wires sticking out the front here. Oh, I got to bring those phase wires up through there, and then we can install the actual controller itself. At least you can see the back sides of these bolts right here through the where the battery sits. But boy, that's the one thing that honestly I would say has been a challenge, is just getting these guys to thread in there. Of all the things I thought was going to be tough on the install, I didn't think it was going to be putting in these lower bottom bolts. Believe it or not, they're just right next to the plastic. You can't get your fingers in there. You got to use the tool. A little bit of a challenge, but nothing we can't handle. So go ahead and snug that up. And now that piece is installed. That looks great. So before I install this guy on here, I just want to kind of point out a couple things. Kind of tough to see, but I'm trying to catch it in the light here. Obviously that's your hall sensor connector in there. You can see that you've got your throttle connection right there. It's kind of tough to see. It's in between the sensors, but it is there, or in between the connectors. You know, over here you can see that this is the CAN connection, right? And obviously these guys all plug in here. Pretty straightforward, positive and negative here on the top. We of course know that the red is positive, black is negative, but which colors go where? Which one's a U, which one's a V, which one's a W? Well, it turns out this controller actually can auto sense that and actually spin it in both directions. So essentially it doesn't matter. Now, if we do a test on this and it's going backwards, we can flip it in the software. But for now, all we gotta do is get this guy connected. So let's go ahead and install it. Now, tightening these down, and guys, this can be very tricky. Use a torque wrench. You can see here I'm set to 6 Newton meters. That's what they recommend the torque for all of these lugs. If you don't have a torque wrench, go borrow one. Really, this is the proper way of doing this. That way you don't break a lug off, you don't have any problems down the road. Use a torque wrench to get these guys on here. 6 Newton meters is a good bit of torque, okay? You could potentially use the short side of an Allen wrench if you're just using, say, the small part on your hand there, but rather than the big long extension, you know. You just wanna make these guys pretty snug. 6 Newton meters is pretty darn tight. I don't think you'd over tighten it with an Allen wrench, but if you have the option of borrowing one of these, go get one and use it because it really will make for a better installation. And ultimately down the road, you don't have to worry about breaking a pin off or a peg off inside the controller, or even worse, you know, having one of these come loose on you when you're out on the trail. So that's kind of my best practice. Borrow a torque wrench and do it at 6 Newton meters. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start connecting some things up here. Real quick note though, these plugs that are in here, guys, these are just plugs. They're caps and plugs that you could actually reuse if you wanted to. You have to punch holes through the little orange thing, you know, so that you have a nice airtight or watertight seal in there. But for the ones you're gonna use, you do need to remove those. And in this case, obviously CAN and INT4, we're gonna be using both of those. Take a small little jeweler's screwdriver, something like this, put it in this little hole here, push it in, that'll unlock the tab, and then just lift up slightly. And as you can see, that guy just kind of popped out of there like that. And now you can remove that plug, or I should say, yeah, the plug, I guess. Go ahead and remove that guy out of there, and then that way you can plug these in. I'm gonna start off here with INT4. That's this one out to the side here. When you do insert these in, obviously you wanna make sure that you've got that push pin on the outside here, and then make sure that it also goes all the way down and snaps into place. You should be able to see that locking clip there on the outside, okay? And I'm gonna do the same thing here. I believe this is the CAN, yep. And again, they are all labeled, so it's pretty easy and pretty straightforward when you plug them in here. Right, there we go, heard that guy click into place. We've got the other two that are unfortunately on the other side. We got our hall sensor and our throttle cable here. I'm gonna kind of finagle this around a little bit. Read it here, that one is the hall. So if this is the hall, get rid of that screwdriver here. I'm gonna go ahead and plug the hall sensor in over here on this side. Make sure that goes all the way down. And last but not least, our throttle cable. So I kind of maneuver this guy around, trying to do this and look around the camera at the same time. It's a little tricky, but we'll get it. There we go. All right, so there you go. That's it. This thing is entirely wired up. Now that I look at this, I almost forgot. We got to put the cover plates on. So let's go ahead and get these guys installed in here real quick. Definitely want those on. I want to keep those terminals protected if at all possible. So just go ahead and drop those on there. They're just a couple of nice little taper head screws that we're going to use, or bolts I should say. But I'm going to grab a little screwdriver here. Go ahead and drop these in there. And of course, put the one on that covers the power connection here. Boy, I got to tell you, these are snug. They fit very, very tightly on here. So just kind of use a little caution when you're putting them on there. They do sit just behind, hopefully you guys can see that. They sit just behind those little kind of cable holders, if you will. They sit just behind that. Kind of want to hold them down, obviously, because I've got a little bit of tension happening here on the cables. But we're going to get these screws in either way here. So all the plates are on, everything's good, all of my connections are down. I didn't leave any of the blank connections open. All of that looks good. Now we just kind of finagle everything back down in there so that it all fits nicely. I think I can just kind of sort of push it in there, and it's in there. All right. Well, yeah, you can definitely feel it. It's kind of springboarding a bit off of these wires. I think it's just from the phase wires at the bottom. Kind of halfway expected it, if I'm being honest. There's a lot going on inside of here. I'm going to try to just kind of move these out of the way, get them off to the side into this kind of side valley here. You know how this goes. You just kind of got to make room for them all to fit so that you can get everything in there in one shot, and then everything will just fit. All right, that feels pretty good. We'll go ahead, throw these bolts in here. So now we can go ahead and put the key switch back in. It's just a matter of kind of making sure all of your connections and all of your harnesses and everything are kind of out of the way. Usually I lift up on the lid a little bit. That'll drop that in there. There is this nice little channel at the top of the key switch here that allows you to have all of the wires kind of come through in one spot here. And I'm going to attempt to put those all in one area just like that. And of course, when you do this, you want to make sure you've got, probably jarred the camera there a little bit, but you want to make sure you've got enough space to be able to turn the handlebars back and forth and not pull on any of the wires. That is definitely kind of an important thing. But now just go ahead and bolt this into place. All right, so got the battery installed, got that in there. This is the first time flipping the breaker. All right, I flipped the breaker and it actually came right on without the key even in there. I am going to turn the key on because we're going to go in and actually set up that key switch here. So we've got this guy turned on for the first time. Now we're going to want to go into the programming on it. So I'm going to push this button here off to the left. This is going to take us into devices. I'm going to go into the nuclear controller. I'm then going to go down. First thing is check the battery voltage on here. So come in here, hit battery, quick voltage setup. We can look it down here and see, obviously this is set up as they stated, ready to go for a Surron. So max voltage 67.2 because it's 60 amp or a 60 volt battery. Everything in here looks like it should be right out of the gate. So let's go ahead and back this guy up. I'm going to go into devices, nuclear controller setup. We then want to go down, I believe, into auto setup. I want to go into full setup, and I'm going to want to turn this on, off, I guess. And then I guess I want to kind of full setup on and push I guess the green button. Okay, it says push the brake. I don't have the brake on here, so I'm just gonna wait till that times out here. Apologize for my other battery charger. Complete. Okay, so press the throttle. So I've got my throttle set here. I'm gonna go ahead and bring the throttle all the way on. It says to release it. And then obviously I have to watch it go through its setup here. Okay, it looks like it has completed that. It says motor LR measuring. So it's still doing something here. Making an interesting noise. It says OK. Set up current. Pole pair 5. That is all correct. Okay. So I think that has completed itself. I'm not sure if there's anything else that we need to do in here. I believe that is set up exactly the way that we should have it set up. So now I'm going to back up all the way to the beginning here just to see, and give it just a touch of throttle. Oh yeah. So, all right, so directly after doing the auto setup, yours may do this too. Giving it any throttle spins the wheel backwards. I heard this could be potentially a thing. So what you want to do is come in here. I'm trying to get it where you don't have the glare on here, guys. Sorry about that. Go ahead and click this button, go into devices, go to nuclear controller, and then we want to go down to motor setup. Enter into motor setup, and sure enough, here's the spin direction, okay? We want to change this to inverted, okay? Once we have that set to inverted, push the green button again, and of course you can then toggle this back and forth. We've got that, we're all the way through here, and then we can back out of this, and that should do it, I believe. There we go. Now it is set to the other way. Now I think we also want to go up to, let's see, we want to go up to save settings, change that to on, and push that nuclear controller setting saved. So that way when I key this thing off and key it back on, or turn it on, turn it off, we obviously know that it has saved that setting. So it's always probably just a good idea, anytime you're making changes, come in here and hit save settings. That way everything's stored. Okay, so one of the other things I definitely want to change on here is I want to switch kilometers and obviously Celsius over to Fahrenheit and miles per hour. So in that case, I'm going to hit the green button here off to the left, go into the onboard computer, then hit this one, come down to main screen setup, take main screen setup, go down into kilometers, hit the green button to activate it, the button next to it to change it. That is what I want. Go down to the next one, change Celsius to Fahrenheit, and now we can go back to the main screen here. And there we go. Look at that. Miles per hour and Fahrenheit. So now I want to go in and set up to where my key switch will work. So make sure you got your key switch in the on position. Then we want to hit this button. We want to go into our devices. We want to go into the nuclear controller, hit the green one again. This is actually going to be under extra parameters, and then sure enough right there at the top, disable button. Go ahead and push the green button. That'll make it to where anytime you see the little kind of chevrons or brackets there off to the side, that means that you can actually modify this. So in this case, I want to switch it to switch. There are a couple of other options in here, button, can, control. Leave it set to switch. That is your key switch that they're talking about here. Make sure that you then hit the green button again. That'll take you out of those settings, but then you want to come up or back up just one place. And you have to make sure you do this every time you make a change, okay? Go in here and switch it to on, then hit the green button, and it'll say settings are saved. That is very important. If you don't do that, when you turn this off, it's obviously not going to work, or it'll default back to whatever it is. Every time you make a change that you want to keep, make sure you go in and hit the save. There's always a screen on one of those saves. So now that we've got that, we'll come down here and hit the key switch. It takes a second, turns off. Sure enough, the controller is entirely powered off. Come back here, nothing weird's going on. Even if I were to give it some throttle, we got nothing there. Now we want to turn the machine back on, turn the key on, and you'll watch the cool little startup animation that it goes through here, and you're ready to go. And we should be, yeah, we're live again. Right, so that's really nice. Just make sure that you're hitting save every time. Okay, so now I want to go in here and actually set up so the speedometer is accurate and all of that good stuff. So we want to hit the button here off to the left, go into devices, nuclear controller. I want to go back down to extra parameters again. We're going to come down here and change the circumference, hit the green button, make our changes. Mine is, oh boy, I went way too far. If you hold them down, they go very quick. Mine is 1840 is my circumference there. Running a 14 tooth motor sprocket. and a wheel sprocket of a 64 tooth. I actually run a very high torque setup because obviously we do a whole lot of climbing in the mountains and things like that. So that is how that is set up. Now, once we've made these changes, obviously we talked about this. I'm gonna make sure that we back up one, and I'm gonna come back up here into save settings, hit the green button, switch it to on, hit the green button again, and now it is saved those settings. Make sure you do that every single time. What I'm going to show you here is how to set up these buttons across the bottom down here to where you can actually hold these guys down and they will actually change modes from mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, even being able to go all the way out to mode, or I'm sorry, reverse is what I've got this last button programmed on here. I didn't film the entire process because, well, simply put, it took quite a while to actually figure out what it was. I'll walk you through the whole process because it's actually kind of a two-step process here. So the first thing you want to do is go into your onboard computer. That, of course, being this display unit itself. Come down here to where it says button setup, go in there, and you're going to want to enable these hotkey functions to CAN 1, CAN 2 for hotkey 2, CAN 3 for function 3, and obviously hotkey 4 for CAN 4. Once you have that set up, you want to back up, obviously come up here to save, oops, right there, save that off, and then once you have that saved, I'll go all the way back to the beginning here and start over. The next thing you want to do is go down to your devices, go into your controller itself, and then you're going to want to scroll all the way down to I/O configuration. Okay, I/O configuration allows you to get into all of the inputs here, and you want to just start scrolling down and keep scrolling all the way down to these four right here. CAN port 1, CAN port 2, CAN port 3, CAN port 4. 1 is this button. Okay, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and I've got mine set to S1, S2, S3, and then reverse, being the last button here off to the right. Once you have that set up in there, obviously back up one mode here, or one level. Come all the way back up here to where it says save settings, change this over to on, tell it to save that particular setting, hit that, and of course that'll be saved. You need to save it both times to be able to have that in here so that you now have control over these. And this is really cool. I mean, I can come in here and say, hey, you know what? I want to switch this to reverse. And then when I full throttle that guy, I've got the reverse set to a fairly slow kind of high torque setting. But that's how you set up these hotkey buttons. Okay guys, so a couple of quick footnotes here at the end of the video. The 3-button controls. S1 and S2 is actually pre-configured from the factory because we ordered it as a Surron kit. S3, you do need to go in there and actually set up whatever you want your high output to be. For instance, your phase amp, your battery voltage, and all of that stuff. But we are going to be taking a much deeper dive into this software. They allow you to bounce back and forth between whatever user access level that you want. They don't hide anything in this software. So we're going to go all the way into engineering, see everything that's available, and potentially even make some changes in there and see what all of this cool stuff does. I've also provided a discount code down in the description. If you want one of these things, you can get 5% off by punching in my discount code. So that's kind of nice. Save yourself a few bucks, right? We're also going to have a number of other videos, ride reviews. You're going to get to see me ride this thing, and I'll give you all of my impressions as to how this controller performs and ultimately even make some changes on the trail and kind of go through some of these settings and see ultimately how it does. But guys, certainly hope this video worked out for you. If you've got one of these, go out there and get this thing on the trail and have some fun with it. Let me know how you're riding. Send me a link to it. I'd love to see how you guys are riding. But if you enjoyed this stuff, like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that other silly fun stuff. But guys, we will see you on the next video.